We went live.
All
Good,
right.
good. I'm just waiting for somebody to show up. We're gonna show out anyway, okay? Hi Dana, how you doing today? It's good to see you. Yes,
Hey there.
absolutely. We were talking before we I hit the live button. I'm like, hey Pam, what's going on, girl? Hi, Dr.
Quayle
Quick Quilly.
anti-burnout coach.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
I hope we talk about anti-burnout. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, we did. But Sensei, what's up? Wow. Okay. We got Sensei in the building. All right. Hi, Keegan.
I
Good to
love how
see you today.
everybody's turning out for you, Margaret. It's
Hey,
wonderful.
we always have a good time over here. You know what I'm saying? We have a good time. That's what we here for, right? We come here to show up and show out. Okay? Because we talking about joy. That's why. Okay?
Yes, we are.
Returning to joy. Isn't that right, Dr. Jennifer? You
I know
know
Dr.
about it.
Jennifer Scott. I'm a fan.
I am too. I'm a fan of everybody here. Happy Friday is right. TGIF. Okay?
TGIF.
Thank God it's Friday. Okay, all right. I used to say that when I was working. Okay. Hey, how you pronounce her name? CT.
Nabanita?
Not Benita. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, because she's here. She's always here too. You know what I'm saying? So we got enough people here to get started. Okay. Because we're talking about joy today. Okay. Because
Returning
we
toward
men
joy.
absolutely. CT and I was talking about that before. She had me over here shouting. So we getting ready to get this party started, okay? So here we go. So I'm Margaret Williams. Yay, that's right. Let's go. Margaret Williams here. Okay, I help women who have been marginalized to elevate their voices, stop surviving power systems, and start leading with freedom, influence, and authority. All right? And I am so honored to have CT. I call him CT, okay?
That's
I
cool.
love that. All right. But this is Cynthia Luna, okay? And she's a writer, creator, and multi-dimensional storyteller. Okay? All right. Now, CT is a writer, a creator for her work exploring the intersections of identity, travel, and creative mastery. Okay? She is the founder of Brown Beyond Borders, a platform where she shares reflections on biracial journey, global belonging, and
Hmm.
visual soul of storytelling. Now, the rest of the information about CT's work will be included when I publish the article, so we can
Just cut
work
to it.
on the conversation exactly while we're
Okay.
here today. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that. Okay, now tell us how you came to Substack and what you're doing right now.
Okay, so how did well, I found Substack. So you and I, just before this call, we were talking about social media
Right.
and the choices that we were making with social media, and obviously some of the ways that social media can chafe at our joy.
Yes, right.
And I had actually turned away from Facebook. I still have an account, but it has been ignored for over a year. Most of the folks that are on there that I know, they are people that I've actually met. I think when I first was invited to Facebook back in, I don't know, 2007 or 2006, it was an old high school friend, just like all the rest of y'all got involved. And, we were all excited about like finding each other again online, and I actually, it's funny, I had an early rule back in those days that I would have had to have seen your face in the flesh in order to be your friend on Facebook. So I had kind of started to already create those boundaries for myself back in the day. And so, of all the people that I am friends with, some of them they are all sort of one degree of separation. But some of them I haven't seen their faces in the flesh in years. So we've also moved on, grown apart, and certainly I would say, oof, it was actually during Trump's first presidential election that I started to really struggle with my social media friendships. And that's when I made a very conscientious decision that I was going to have to start being very clear with who I was going to just allow to step into my space, digital or otherwise, and that I kind of realized, like, you know what? If people are making me miserable from thousands of miles away because I'm listening to them and disagreeing with them, and now they're being hateful, then why am I engaging? Why am I stepping into this space? Why don't I just block somebody, right? I was about to use the B word, but why don't I just block
Go
them?
ahead. Say what you
Right?
want.
so so that's what I started to do. I started to cut ties. And then that kind of yeah, go ahead, ask.
How did that make you feel?
Well, at first it made me feel I would say for a long time it made me feel bothered. And then I would walk around with that like that I had done something bad by asserting myself. And it was actually another friend of mine who was going through the same sort of experience. And I'll just, for the purposes of this conversation, I'll just say she's a white female friend. I've been friends with her since for like 20 years now. So we met each other in college. So 30 years now. Um, we've known each other for a really long time. And she was like, why don't you feel relief that you've like cut them loose? And that kind of like set me on an exploration about my um, condition, my upbringing, the codes that I was brought up with. And a lot of them were about people pleasing. And I'm just going to fast forward to 2023 when I met Christy Rutherford, who I had on my show a few months ago. And actually, that's how you and I met because you watched that show. And
And Christy
it,
was over here too.
yes, 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 she was. She was. And she is a powerhouse. And she was the first, she called me out on my people pleasing ways and on my perfectionistic ways. Both of which have served me well. They've definitely helped me to survive in a very racialized context. However, they also made me kind of combat myself and combat my decisions. So, where my friend was feeling relief for, taking out the trash of her social media accounts, I was feeling guilt for, creating a space for myself. I was feeling guilt for creating a space for myself and asserting my needs and making choices that serve me. And Christy helped me to learn how to give up realize that that's actually my trauma default. And we talked about that on my program. She's now calling them trigger points, I think. Realize that those are my trigger points, that like I do have this reflex to please the people around me and also to show up in a perfect way, and that also is working against me. And part of that included embracing my weird. And now we're kind of shifting into the emerging into golden multidimensionality, which is really a very wordy way of saying returning to my joy. And I think that that's really the journey that we're all supposed to be on as humanity. It is to return to your joy and rediscover like your true spirit, which is always moving in the direction of joy. So
I
that was a
just want to
word.
say, I really, wow, I love what you said there. And when I look back over my life, I told you I grew up in a narcissistic family system. It was just
Mm,
not one. It was the whole thing. And
mm,
I was the black sheep
mhm,
and the scapegoat.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
And so I um I never trusted people
Yeah,
because all the people around me, my family betrayed me. So how could I, including my mother,
yeah,
my father, my brothers, everybody. So it just prepared me for the battle that I'm facing today. Okay?
yep,
It
yep.
gave me the armor to work for the federal government for 39 years in a racist,
Mhm.
uh
Construct.
not only race and gender.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I'm always going to be last. I don't care if I give you 120%. I'm
Mhm,
still going to be at the bottom at the
mhm,
end of the day. And I work harder than anybody in
mhm.
there.
Yep,
And you give me no respect. And you and all the things that I went through it, but that's okay. It
yep,
wasn't about them. It wasn't about them. It was about getting to the end of the finish line to be able to say, I did this.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. People
And
have been asking me since I self-published my book, and I can just show it on the. So I self-published the book, and people have been asking me like how long have you been writing it, and when did you find time, and all of these things. And so I'll say I'm always writing anyway. My day job is writing. I'm always writing in a journal, so it's lots of journal entries, etc. But I would say that this really started to coalesce around the time that I connected with Christy, and where I really started to see how my people pleasing ways, and she actually has like there are 6 or 7 different trigger points that she talks about. For me, it happens to be those two: the people pleasing and the perfectionism. I think um, there is a way that, like, I think hers is to kind of like stand up and be the voice against injustice. So hers, I can't remember what it's called. There's also a lone wolf. There's several of them. They just don't apply to me. But when I understood that, like, this is a reflexive way that I respond, and it helped me when in my youth and as I was growing up, but it's no longer helping me. And actually, it's keeping me kind of cycling around in the same pattern. And I am actually kind of like filling a cup with a hole in it. And so that was the work that we did, and part of that work was pulling together the things that I had written in my journal, and I had started to include them in a memoir that kind of showed this progression. So there is sort of, you know I call it a biracial memoir, but actually it's a story of, I think, every person, and certainly every woman, to make sure that they understand that they need to know who they are intrinsically, know that they they're the purpose of our life is to move in the direction of joy. That's really it. That is really it. Like, whenever we're all like looking for this meaning, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing in this life? God, I hear about people praying. I used to, ask the universe, like, what am I supposed to be doing in this life? Why am I suffering? It's actually just to move in the direction of your joy. That is it. That is the North Star.
through pain, we find joy.
You
Okay, let
know,
me explain. Let me
yeah.
explain.
You do. And there's something that somebody said around that time when I was with Christy that was a light bulb moment for me, which was, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. And I actually struggled with that for like a few months until it clicked that it's a hell no, which goes back to the whole social media thing. Like, if I'm not hell yesing in this engagement, why am I still tuned in? Like, turn off the Insta.
You
I'm
know
not
what? I'm
seeing
glad.
dancing people.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's how we get sucked in. You
Yes.
get sucked in, And then, because I have an addictive personality. If
Hmm.
it's bringing you joy, temporary, but is that joy or is it satisfying a want or desire?
Hmm.
What's the difference between a want and desire and joy?
Right.
Let's
Well,
let's talk about it.
the desire is when it starts to shift from that, like, from that pleasure into that lack of pleasure. And then you're kind of
Mhm.
like hungering or thirsting for something, but you're not actually fulfilling that joy. And let's just be honest, social media is designed specifically to draw you in, to get you excited, and then once it's got you, it keeps kind of like throwing these little, bits of attention getters. And before you know it, you're listening to like random people ranting about stuff that you've never really even thought about, that you probably didn't even care about. And then you're thinking about like all of these terrible things that are so far away from your actual purpose right now, which is joy.
It loses its luster real quick.
It
What drew
does.
you in becomes the opposite. And that's why I shut off IG, shut off Facebook, and just shut threads off because it's taking me off my path. It's taking me back to the gutter,
Yeah.
taking me back to the alley and places I don't want to be. And
I am super, yeah,
whoever wants that, let them have it.
yeah.
To each their own. But I have other places to be and to go and people to
I
talk
am
to, like
super,
yourself.
super, super, super selective about who I engage with, how I engage, how long I engage. I have, I work in a corporate environment. I have a day job. Things are what they are. They're probably not as intense as the military. So hats off to you for surviving for 39 years. But I have my coping mechanisms now, and I am very, like, I don't know how many times I excuse myself from a meeting that can be triggering. So like nobody can stop me from needing a bathroom break.
I've done it too. I
Yeah.
was having a meeting with my supervisor and her supervisor, and they wanted to call me in to have a meeting to talk about my performance.
Hmm.
Okay. It don't take a rocket science to figure out what that conversation is going to lead to. So I said, "Hey,
Right.
I gotta take a break. I'll be back." I had to go outside, not
Yeah.
just to the bathroom, outside. Okay,
Yeah.
let the freezing cold hit me, and I'm like, "Okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to say?" Because I
Yeah.
know I'm gonna be triggered. I'm already triggered because I can feel my heart beating fast,
Hmm.
and I don't want to give them the ammunition.
Hmm.
Okay, so how am I going to approach it? You know what I'm
How am I
saying?
going to approach? And I mean, there are lots of tools, and I can't say that you can prevent it from being, a disappointing meeting, or one where you're going to be, gaslit into hearing things about yourself that are not true. But one of the things I have noticed is that in me is that I don't get flustered. And I have one trick that I learned with Christy, as well as with that girlfriend I was telling you that I've known for 30 years. She's also an executive coach. Is box breathing, which I think is a Navy SEAL technique, where you breathe in for 4 breaths and then breathe out for 4 breaths and then breathe in. So not for 4 breaths, but for 4 counts. So, and you basically kind of draw a box in your mind as you're breathing the 4 counts across each level. And that cools me down. I can even kind of imagine it if I'm feeling my heart racing. And I have learned another thing, which is time is a luxury that belongs to everybody. And especially in a corporate environment, you can ask for your time. You can always ask for time. If it means that you need to cut that meeting short because you don't have the time or you're not prepared to respond completely,
or,
you
or
ask
you're
for
not
it.
feeling well.
You
Yeah,
ask
or
for
I'm
it.
not feeling well. Yeah, you're right.
Cut
You're
that
right.
cut that meeting short. Just because they made it a 1 hour meeting where they wanted to pile on you, when it's your turn to speak, you say, I'm not prepared. I'm going to ask for another meeting.
I would say in the situation that I was in, that would be unfavorable. It would be unacceptable unless I wasn't feeling
Probably.
well.
Right.
Okay.
Or
Because
that.
that's just gonna give them more ammunition to use against you. So, it's just better just to rip the band-aid off and get it over with. Okay.
And
Because then you're gonna be sitting there on the hot seat, sitting there wondering, well, what was they gonna say? Then you're gonna make it worse for yourself. So just get it over with and move on.
right.
Okay.
But in that case, the decision had already been made. And
It's
actually
been
all of their talk is really more about them.
documentation. It's about documentation. CYA. You know what CYA is,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely. So, in which case it's sort of like this environment isn't bringing me joy anymore either. And that's when I started to realize like, my spirit is actually more in concert with the universe than my let's say mundane everyday person is, right? The conditioned beings, like we're all conditioned to sort of operate in this rhythm that is not the rhythm of the universe. Like we're not actually supposed to be working for 8 hours straight.
No. We were
It's
entitled to two 15-minute breaks.
for right. Okay, but you know what I'm saying. Like there's some
Yeah,
days
of
where
course.
you wake
Of
up and
course.
you're just sort of like, I just can't get started at 8 today. I've
That
done freelance work where I've been in charge of my schedule, and there are just some days where it's like I can get 8 hours worth of work done in 2 hours. I can
exactly.
write 4 chapters in just a few hours, and then there are other
Exactly.
days where it's like I can't even write like 4 sentences. It's just there are you have like ebbs and flows, and I think we're sort of programmed to think that we're supposed to meet the rhythm of, I don't know what it is, like the rhythm of corporate
We
life.
have
And it's
to.
like,
If they paying you, you have to jump. When they say how high, you have to jump. So that's why I freaking retired. Because I got tired of being on that hamster wheel when I didn't feel like it. Okay? People,
right.
you can have this job, okay? Your $130,000 a year was not worth my time, my effort, my mental, my physical, emotional well-being. It was
And
not worth it.
was it bringing you joy?
No, it was not.
No.
Just the opposite. Just the opposite.
Exactly. Exactly. And then that's when you realize like, oh, it's actually, I believe, and I don't have any statistics, but I do believe that the system is designed, and now we can kind of go back to, oh yeah, a very significant thing happened last week. Um, the the system is designed to keep us from moving towards our joy. And
Of
I've
course it
always
is.
I've been fascinated with how the US Constitution actually includes the pursuit of happiness. Like by it was understood by the founding fathers that like
But
this
not
is actually.
but not for people that look like me and you.
That's right. And so this is a significant thing that happened, and it actually connects with the book. About 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 Mondays ago, the UN declared declared the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest, I think they said crimes against humanity or atrocities in humanity. You can Google it because it happened just a couple weeks ago. And this is significant because, and this connects with the book, because you have to connect with knowing yourself in order to take the path towards joy. As long as you're hungry, thirsting, desperate to understand who you are, you're just seeking, but you don't know what you're looking for. And it's only as you start to like move towards your joy that you start to discover who you are. And then you can only see yourself as your golden multidimensional completeness. You
And
know, go ahead.
yes, you're changing your vibration. You're changing your resonance. You're changing with what you will accept. Okay. And
That's
then
right.
you eliminating everything else.
That's
And
right.
that is when you feel freedom and joy. You feel
Yes.
it in your body. You feel it, you feel it in your mind, your emotions, okay?
Yeah.
Behavior, your behavior
I'm
as
getting
well.
I'm getting goosebumps because I'm even feeling you being more grounded, right? And like as you embody this energy and as you kind of channel this energy and kind of hold it for that like sphere of power that's actually inside you and that you're kind of channeling or holding together almost like a battery. As you do that, I realize that you're centered, you're calmed. Even when you're sitting in one of those meetings, like a year-end performance assessment, you kind of realize like anything that they're saying about you is actually not about you.
It's them. It's
That's
about
right.
them.
And
Their
so
insecurities. Their insecurities.
what happens? What happens is I don't have any words. And if they ask you, you know, if they say, "What do you say about that?" It's like, I don't have any
See,
words because none of it's really about me. And when they say all the things that they say about me, it's like I know who I am and I know the work that I do. And I am so grounded in that. I understand that if they have to make a decision, and by the way, I'm not saying that I don't enjoy working there and that I don't, you know, enjoy the people I work with. Actually, to the contrary. But if it means that like though that we have to go our separate ways, then that's what it means. And I now have a faith that something will line itself up for me.
it always does. You haven't
It
got this
always
far.
does.
You haven't got this far by chance.
I have not. I have not. And I have done it the easy way, which is the joyful way. I would say that was mostly in most points of my youth. And then I've gone through some hard ways where I made things difficult and, you know, and I would get suckered into the social media spats about, you know, certain presidential candidates and people that generally aren't in my sphere of existence anyway.
It's all good. We just have to give ourselves some grace. We are not perfect by any means, okay?
No,
Even though my father wanted me to be perfect, he was far from it. So if you're far from it, what do you expect from me? Okay?
yeah. And I
So we
wanted
have
to
to,
be.
okay, we have to realize that we're not, okay? That life is consists of a lot of trials and errors,
Oh,
okay?
yes.
And a lot of lessons learned, okay?
Can
And
I
those
tell you?
lessons
Mhm. I
create, create go ahead.
I want to tell you about a weekly experience where I experience trials and errors. And I'm having fun with it. And I have to say it's the best decision I made. I'll just put give a little bit of context. It was after Christie's course. I learned that my father had cancer, and that kind of turned my life upside down. And I had to travel to the Caribbean to visit him, et cetera, et cetera. That continued for about 6 months of back and forth, or lots of calls, Western Unions, hospital visits, et cetera. And then he passed away in July, and I fell into a hole. And I just knew that I needed to figure out some way to get out of it. And Christy made me do some crazy things before all of that happened. And so I went back to my notes and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just start taking dance lessons. And I called a local dance instructor. I knew that I liked salsa music. I don't really hear a lot of it here in Europe. So I called a local dance instructor who did teach salsa. And I was like, I'm gonna sign up for 10 one-on-one classes. We'll see how many I attend, but I'm doing this. And he's kind of like, do you want to do this? And I was like, I just have to do it. So yeah, I guess. And he's like, okay, it's your money, right? So he was kind of doubtful because I was not I was not doing this joyfully. I was actually doing it just to kind of give myself a kick in the pants because Christy wasn't there to do it for me. And and I have been taking weekly dance lessons with him. And he has like the other day he was saying, you know, I was telling him that I'm gonna have my brother join a workshop of his in a couple weeks. And he's like, is your brother as talented as you are? And I was like, oh, you think I'm talented? You know, and it's like when I think about that conversation I had with him versus that first conversation I had with him, where I was kind of like, please tell me you don't accept any student. Like, I was almost asking him not to accept new students. But the point is, this class, I I am not talented. Like I am messing up the steps. I need lots of practice to kind of like find the right steps so that I don't step on my partner's feet, you know, and I'm laughing every time I mess up. Um, it's just I'm having so much fun. And it's the best thing that I ever did. And I guess that's what I if you find something that brings you joy, like you can't help yourself, stick with it. You know, find some way, some partner, something to make you stick with it. As long as it's fun. I'm not going to ask you to stick with something if it's not fun. And the reason why I stuck with salsa is because I actually had fun in that first class. It kind of went downhill for a few days, but then I had fun again, you know. And there were some times where I was like, I don't really think I want to go to that class. And then I'd come home and I'd be like, I'm so glad I went to that class. You know, so for some it's dancing, for others it could be painting. It's going to be something. For others it's church, playing games at your local church, you know. I mean, there's all sorts of things where you can have fun, but it's so important that you keep moving in the direction of your hell yes.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because when I was a kid, I used to sing in the choir. Okay. And also when I was in middle school, I played in the band. Okay. I played the clarinet.
Ah.
Okay. I played the alto sax.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I wanted to be a singer.
Uh-huh.
Growing up in Detroit, my father said no, because it was a good singer on every corner,
Yeah, that's true.
and maybe in between, you know. So, you know, I'm like, I seen it. It's very, very competitive. So I'm like, no, I won't do it. So I went into, you know, something else instead, to
Hmm.
be a technician. Okay, I didn't know specifically what I wanted. So that actually helped me being a technician because that means when I got hired with the government with associate's degree, I can work in any area. I can work in construction. I can work in engineering. Okay, I can work in geotechnical. You know, I
Hmm.
can work wherever, and because I am multi-dimensional and
You are.
multi-talented,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I worked in a lot of different things. Worked with a lot of different people. You know, I worked overseas for 16 years. You know, I got along with people. You know,
Yeah.
because I recognize, you know, you got to take your ego and put that outside. So, what do you need me to do? I'll be willing to roll up my sleeve. If I didn't know how to do something, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm a quick learner. So
Uh-huh.
that's why I was successful during my career. Okay. Not that I didn't have any difficulties because I did. That's why I
Yeah.
moved 8 times.
Hmm.
Okay. Because I'm not gonna stay somewhere where I'm not wanted. Okay. Or where I don't feel that I can give the best value based on what I'm getting. Okay. So we have to stick and move when it's necessary. Okay.
And I can't speak for others. I have actually lived in an environment where I can't easily call a place home. So I'll kind of go back to that and give a little bit of context. I was born in Trinidad, and when we were children, my parents moved to Canada. My brother was born there. They finally moved to Washington, D.C. My parents both worked for international organizations. So we grew up in Washington, D.C., always thinking that we might be posted elsewhere in the world. So our go bags were always packed. I like espionage novels, so
All
but we
right.
didn't have go bags. but and afterwards when I went to school, I went to an international school. So most of the kids, they went back to their parents' home countries. So I went to school with Dutch kids, Spaniards, Mexicans, right? So people from all around the world, and they all kind of went back to their countries. And I was kind of like, I guess I'm going to hang out in DC. But I realized like I didn't really know anybody from there. Then I ended up going to university in Boston. I came to Switzerland to spend a few years at university as well. Then I went back to the States. So I was kind of bopping around, figuring out like, who am I? What am I? Like, where am I from? And this kind of ties back into the exploration in my book, which is I had to kind of step away from constantly like presenting myself to the world to tell me who I am. And to kind of get into a place where I can say who I am without the words. My husband has this wonderful expression that I included in the book, which is the description is not the described. And actually, it's kind of like a mantra that goes on in my head, especially during those performance assessment conversations, because it is not really an assessment of anyone's performance. It's, I mean, when I look at like the people around me, we all do a great job. Sometimes the systems are not so stable to kind of present like to allow us to really platform the quality of our work the way it should be platformed, because the regulation, the policy, the system, just some kind of cut and paste, bandage, fix it workaround that we have. That's just the reality. Like that's the only reality I know of all of the jobs I've had. And as much as I've moved around the world, I've also moved around jobs. I've seen I've seen jobs. They're all a little bit cut and paste.
Yes, and we realize that as we get older, when we first start working for these organizations, I was so gun ho and everybody loved you and everybody wants you. But then once you start getting, in your 50s and 60s, and you have all this wealth of knowledge and experience, but you're costly, you're the
Yeah,
one that's going to be on the chopping block first.
yeah.
Okay?
The ones in the
That's the
middle.
reality. That's
Mhm.
the reality. And
Mhm.
I never got a chance to break through the glass ceiling. And that
Mhm.
wasn't by chance. That was designed. That was
Yeah.
designed.
I'm right there. I'm right there. And actually it's really interesting because I announced about 6 months ago with my superior that I'm going to go for the directorship. And and I could
Good for you.
see them kind of, yeah, thank you. And I could see them kind of, be shocked. And they were like, well, what's your business case? And I'm like, well, I have some ideas. I really am just kind of like letting you know that this is something I'm going to be pursuing over the next 14 months. So I'm giving you notice, but I'm happy to prepare something for you. And I guess all of that to say that the way that the way that I'm responding now is so different from the way that I responded 30 years ago. I wish I had met Christy 20 or 30 years ago so she could, kick me into shape. Um, because now I realize, like, just because somebody else is showing surprise at and I know that they were reacting in a way, I don't know why they reacted that way. I don't try to understand why they
I can
reacted
tell
that
you.
way.
I can tell you.
But actually, you don't have to, because it doesn't matter. It is not like, I know that the directorship, having that title, is not who I am. I know that I already like deliver that work and some. And so really all I'm just asking for is the acknowledgement. But if they don't want to acknowledge that, it doesn't matter because I've already acknowledged it for myself. So I'm kind
Good
of
for
just going through
you.
the motions, right? And it's such a different vibe. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, it's a slog to be socializing your case and, meeting all these different partners and having all of them, say like, well, do you really think that you're going to be like bringing like more value than you have been, and do you really think it's worth it, and those kinds of things. And it's kind of like, you'll see.
It just it just confirmed it just confirms what you already knew, that they were not for you. It just
Yeah.
wants confirmation. That's all.
Yeah. And there, you know what I have to say, for all of the people who are not supportive, there are just as many people who are supportive. It's really just about, now it's really just about kind of pursuing my joy and doing this as long as it's interesting to me. You know, if I'm not if I'm not feeling it, like, I actually like my job. you know, and sometimes, like,
That says a
especially when
lot
I've
in
had one.
itself.
Yeah, I mean, I have a job where I'm paid to write. It's not my words, it's not my ideas, but like, this is like a great job. Like, this was the job that I dreamed of 20, 30 years ago. Like, and it does take focus to remember that, because the world's always going to test you. Like, every time I go into Facebook and then I'm like, why am I in here? Or no, not Facebook, it's usually Insta, and I was like, oh, that's right, I'm here for the dancing people. Why am I listening to this person talking about politics?
It's all good. We all have to find joy where we can find it, in healthy ways. That's what I say for me. Being a person, was really too strict. Okay, working for the military.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even look at something that was on contrary, because I'm not going to let you take me off my path. I don't care
Hmm.
what it is. If it's not something to do with the military or something positive, you can take whatever it is over there out of my sight. No, I'll just ignore it. It's not there. Okay?
That's
But
good.
now, yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
That focus.
So, yes, exactly. Laser
Hmm.
focus.
Hmm.
Period. And
Hmm.
so I have to do the same thing here too.
That
Okay?
totally. Actually, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because, and I do talk to my mom about this a lot. My mom is getting up there in age. And, she does have her bouts of loneliness, and she does kind of like spiral into, like, all of the people I know are passing away, and understandable. Like, she's in the winter of her, the winter of her life seasons. And um, and I told her, like, this pursuing your joy is the work. And it's called work for a reason. It is a discipline. Like, there are times when I can find myself complaining about, some crazy email that, that I just got today, or like, why are they inviting me to this crazy meeting that's going to be about another meeting, right? It it is so easy. And you have to kind of catch yourself when you go into that practice pattern, and say, okay, sometimes it can be as extreme as I'm just going to close my laptop and take a walk around the block, or I'm, going to call my salsa teacher and say, like, hey, can I practice the lead? The lead role. That's where I'm really messing up lately, today, and just kind of throwing yourself in a scenario where the stakes are lower, maybe that you're less mentally attached to, and that you can kind of emotionally tap into that joy. And by the way, I think you have a great voice. I think you would be a great singer.
Thank you very much. And that's the thing. I was listening to somebody else. She plays a horn, a French horn, and she was
Hmm.
talking about how much difficulty she had with holding it just to
Yep.
be able to play. And so
Hmm.
the thing of it is we have to not only practice, we have to exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise, you know, inflection and all of these things. So
Yep.
it's something that I practice on a daily basis. And I
Yes.
was saying to myself, if I wanted to start becoming a singer again, I would have to also do voice lessons.
Yes.
Okay. And it has a lot to do with breathing as well. So the diaphragm is very significant. So I recognize all of these things. Okay. Yeah. So do I want to go back into music on that level? I don't know. But I love putting music together. So I'll see where it takes me. That's where my joy comes from. And
You
so
know,
that's why I eliminated IG, I eliminated Threads, I eliminated Facebook, but only for the people that I work with, knowing
hmm
what's going on, and then focus my attention on the things that brings me that joy, and the things that doesn't, those things are eliminated. People, things,
I'm
places.
I
Period.
am so glad that you're talking about all of these things that we don't immediately associate with joy, but I think it's part of it. It is a discipline. It requires exercise. You've got to practice it. You've got to focus. You've got to return to it, right? Like you have to actually commit to showing up for joy on a regular basis, and it is so I know I sound almost militant, but it's like
It's
when I
okay.
hear you talking about your um thinking about singing, yes, you can start casually in the shower, and you can start thinking about like the movement of your mouth. Think about like that the blowhole, and feeling that, you know, and feeling that alignment. And then you realize like this is actually I am channeling the voice of God. This
It
is
is. And
spirit through you. That's right.
it is. And that is my gift.
And
Okay.
and it doesn't matter if it's salsa, if it's cooking, if it's sex, if it's dance, if it's voice, if it's knitting, if it's taking your kid to the playground, like all of that stuff is the work. It really is. It is so much more important than, all of the, yeah, like the content pumping out and the socials and the whatever. And I'm not knocking it. I love the TikToks. I love to watch people dance. I love it when people post things that make me laugh and make me feel good. But when it starts to make me not feel good, then I turn it off. That's the
Exactly.
work. Gardening, drumming,
Exactly.
hiking. Yes. Going out in nature. That's right.
Yes.
Going swimming.
Absolutely. Yes.
And
Whatever it is. Mountain climbing.
it doesn't take much, and it doesn't cost anything. It does not cost a thing. You really don't need the lessons. It's helpful to have the rigor of going back to a lesson. But, like if I really want to dance, I can dance. You know.
You don't
I
you don't need a reason. You just dance, okay? I'll just
Yeah.
turn on a song and just start dancing, and I start feeling joy automatically. Okay, there's
Yeah.
many ways. Okay, We just have to get out of our own way.
and and remember that the discipline is returning to the joy, because there's so many moments in a day that will keep you out of it. And I think that's probably the greatest crime against humanity. Yes, slavery. Yes, the travesties, genocide, the travesties against humanity. But the real crime against humanity has been splitting them off from their spirit, and breaking them down to that point. And the reality is that, like, no one can really do that we're actually fully integrated with our own church.
But we must remember that we cannot feel joy in survival mode. We
No,
cannot.
no, you have to really, in order to stand away from survival mode, you almost have to cut yourself off from what you're surviving from. So, and actually, like, turn away from it. If it means extricating yourself, leave the room, leave the threat. Of course, you have to take care of yourself first. You have to leave the threat. But I think what's happened to most of humanity is that we have moved into survival mode even when we're not actually under threat, right? When we take home the BS from that office meeting or from that crappy day, like, we've actually left the threat, and we're still
But
carrying it in our minds.
not just in our minds, in our bodies too.
In our bodies too. Yep. Yep.
You can't just recover from that just like that. You
Nope.
can't.
No, you need a Christie or a Margaret Williams to tell you, return to your joy.
CT.
She made me go to karaoke, and she wanted me to get evidence. So I had to bring my husband, and he had to, like, video tape me because she thought I was just sort of saying, like, yeah, no, I'll do it, my people pleasing way. And she's like, no, you're taking your husband, he's going to film it, and then you're going to send it to me. And so I had to do that.
I love Christy. She's
she's
amazing.
she is,
She
and I
is.
bet you're amazing too with your coachees.
Well, being in the military, I have to figure out how to say it nicely.
You know what, Blues and Bob, you can't love someone else until you love yourself. I have to say, one of the biggest benefits that came from the work that I did with Christy was my relationship with my husband. And I had always thought we'd had a great relationship. We actually have had a great relationship. We've been together for just over 20 years now. We've always had a great relationship. However, it's just gotten juicier over the past few years. I can't really put my
Hey,
finger on it. I can't say what it is, but, like, that that first kiss feeling is back, and it's been back and consistently back for a while. And I really do believe that it is because I find joy, and I'm focused on finding that joy in a consistent manner. I'm always trying to return to it. I really believe that that's the work. So
yes, yes. I don't know if we specifically talked about the differences between joy and happiness. We may have touched on it.
I don't know if there is a real difference. I mean, I guess I think that joy is, there's like a deeper quality to it.
Right.
But happiness, I think, is kind of like one of the expressions of joy. Sometimes the joy doesn't even look happy. It's just, sitting on a bench outside. We've got a tree that's just starting to blossom, and just kind of like, I don't know. I don't have the words for it, but there is like this joyful feeling, but it probably doesn't look like joy. It probably just looks like a still person sitting on a bench outside. So,
And
yeah.
another thing is we cannot find joy, we know, in alcohol or other things, because these
Mm.
things are only temporary,
Oh,
which
yes.
exacerbates ever connecting
Hmm.
with joy.
Yeah. They actually, over the long run, they actually become like joy blockers. Um, so I think, and it's really interesting because I do have alcoholism in my family, and so I have been able to kind of observe um, how alcohol, especially, I don't know if there are any people who abuse narcotics in my family. I don't know, but definitely with alcohol, that there's this point after which, and it happens earlier and earlier, where it kind of like dulls the person's emotions so that you kind of like can't get a rise out of them in any way before they just turn into a mess. And I think, you know, I I've I d- I can't say I feel sorry for them because I don't feel sorry for them. I do feel compassion. I feel regret that it's become so hard for them to take that space away from the alcohol to find that rhythm of returning to joy without it. And mind you, I'm not a teetotaler. I mean, I enjoy a glass of wine or a couple, every now and again. Um, but I also enjoy I also enjoy when I don't have wine. Actually, one of the times that I absolutely don't drink is when I go to salsa class because I just, I like it so much. I really want to be all there. But yeah, I'll have wine with my girls and, laugh and have a good time. So yeah, addiction is not in my wheelhouse. But I do I feel I feel that there, oh, for a lot of people who do resort to some kind of self-medication, that they're keeping themselves from the opportunity to find their joy.
On that note, we have to stop outsourcing our joy.
Oh, yes. 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 You know, we don't this is actually especially for the Black folk on the call. We do not have to entertain. We don't have to please. We're not here for others. We are here for our own journey to joy. I mean, I will say, like, we, all of us, black, white, you know, whatever, we're all here for our own journeys, and that journey is towards joy. But we definitely don't need to be performing for others. That's not why we're doing this.
Or for external validation, because
Nope.
we already know what to do.
Yep. Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So stop
I
so stop second guessing yourself.
Yes, yes. Actually, I was told, I think I saw something with Dave Chappelle where he basically drew a very clear line that he was not going to um that I think they wanted him to like perform a role that made him uncomfortable. I think it was maybe like as a woman or, I don't know, like a Medea type character or something. It was when he had his show with the networks, and they wanted him to do a role that was just not within his comfort zone. And he said no. And I think they gave him a hard time about it. You can probably find something where he talks about it. And he had to sort of step away from the business, the networks, et cetera. But I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is that was him also kind of recognizing his boundaries, and that like doing that kind of comedy was not him. And so he had to kind of make that choice. And I don't know if all actors have the opportunity, or comedians have the opportunity, to kind of reflect on what their boundaries are.
Well, we've heard different actors talk about roles that they've turned down for, but they didn't specifically talk about the reasons, and
Yeah,
maybe that's it.
yeah.
Okay.
And that could be it. And good for them, you know. And this goes back to sort of knowing who you are, and standing up for your who I amness, in its complete golden multidimensional way. I think Queen Latifah also said, like, I'm not going to play a character who dies on screen. That's her boundary. Like, don't send it to me. So and that's legit, and so it really is about having a regular, honest dialogue with yourself, and understanding what it is that turns you on, and what it is that's just not really your thing.
So we need to track what blocks it. Okay. Like, for example, we need to pay attention to what consistently shuts you down:
Hmm.
overcommitment, draining relationships, harsh self-talk. So awareness here is power. You can't change what you don't notice.
That's true. And I'm glad you said what you don't notice, because it's not always what you don't know, right? I think what that's what some people say, you can't change what you don't know, but it's even what you don't notice. And I didn't notice, like, I talk about a lot of, actually most of this book, or the first half of this book, is really about microaggressions. It's not even like big, racist affronts or anything like that. They're really what other people would consider, kind of like small things. But the thing is, they were things that I didn't notice. And somebody described the word microaggression to me as like um, dying from like a million bee stings or something like that. And and it was like, yeah, that was basically it. My identity had been sort of stung so many times that I wasn't even aware of what it was until I started to be aware of it. And then I could say, like, actually, now that I notice it, I actually realize I don't agree with it. So I think the opening chapter talks about one of my boyfriends in high school, where he was saying, and he was white, he was a Frenchman, and he was like, "Oh no, you're not black, you're métis in French." And I was like, I don't, like, I guess I didn't notice at the time. I only noticed later. Like, there have been many times when people have told me what they thought I was.
Mm.
You're black, or you're brown, or you're not black, or right. So, like, it's like all of these layers of definition, and it's sort of like, actually, I know who I am, and it's not what you describe. The description is not the described. Like, I'm all this,
And
and
a
I
bag
don't
of
need to tell
chips.
you the words. And the bag of chips.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. I don't know if I answered your question. I can't remember your
Yeah,
question.
you really did. And so we have to really start small, and we have to be aware of our surroundings and pay attention to the signs that we are given. And that really helps us to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Really does.
I like the start small. I mean, don't if you don't feel ready for opera lessons, Margaret, or if you don't feel like, going up, head to head with ooh, what's her name? Jennifer Hudson, don't,
Mm.
like, start small. Go into the shower, or just belt it with her in your car, right? Like,
Hey, that's right. Absolutely. But,
yeah.
yes, but we have to find time for joy every day. Every
Yes.
day.
Gotta
Okay.
commit. You gotta commit. That's the discipline. You know, some people, they are committed to prayer, and that's good for them. My prayer is returning to my joy, finding any little thing throughout the day, that gives me that joy, you know. And it really doesn't have to be grandiose. And in fact, I have to say, the more hoopla that you put around it, the more difficult you make it for yourself. You know, it can really be small. Sometimes it's, you know, just stealing a cookie from the cookie jar because you feel like
Okay.
it.
Yeah. And that Haagen Dazs is calling my name. Okay.
You know, Christy, during our she would have these group coaching calls with us, and like all of a sudden she'd be like, I've been talking about cake, I need to get some cake. And she would like go walk to the freezer, pull out some cake, you know, and she would be eating it on the call right there because she just felt like it, you know. And I think we need to kind of remember that, like, we're all, we're grown ass women. Like, we're allowed to do things. You know, we're allowed to do so much more than we've been conditioned. Um, you know, we've been conditioned to like kind of restrict ourselves in ways for no real reason. Like, why shouldn't a grown woman have cake in her freezer at the ready?
Why not?
It makes me
What's that
happy.
woman's name? What's that woman name in history? Antoinette.
Oh,
Antoinette. She
Marie
had cake.
Antoinette,
Yeah,
let
right.
them eat cake. Hmm.
If she can have cake, why can't we? Okay.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yes. Breyer's all natural vanilla. Yes, you know, I mean, it really doesn't have to be a big deal. And we actually shouldn't try to make it a big deal. Like, we shouldn't try to be going to Six Flags every day, you know, getting on roller coasters and bucket listing, you know, through our life. The buckets are all around us, you know. And I think sometimes we just forget how accessible joy is.
We was talking about those roller coasters and everything. You talking about people that like just looking for a quick high.
Yeah.
Okay. Those days are over with. Grow up. Okay? Grow up. I did that shit when I was in, my teenager years. Okay?
Yeah. And you know, it's
Grow
legit. It's legit, you know, for that moment. But yeah, like you're saying, you know, at some point, like, it just doesn't quite cut it anymore. And maybe that's kind of the difference between joy and happiness, since you asked. You know, it's like, yeah, you might have that high of like careening down the roller coaster, and you're like, that felt great, but now what? Is there a bigger
exactly.
roller coaster? Is there, you know, like, or how many roller coasters are you going to do today before you vomit?
Okay? And then how is that riding that roller coaster going to change the trajectory of your life and your
Yeah.
growth that you
Yeah.
want to achieve? Where do you want to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road? It's not going to come from riding roller coasters, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
unless you're trying to design a new one.
Yeah. Well, you know, and maybe that's like, it could be the designing of a new roller coaster, or maybe roller coasters, or I don't know, soap, what are they called? Like soapbox cars, soap car boxes. Anyway, those fast little car things that people build, and you know, they go down hills with. Like, that that could be the joy for some people. You know, writing a book is not a joy for everyone. It happens to be mine. You know, maybe
And
making
that's
the
okay.
the best cup of coffee, that's my joy, you know. And I think we have to like remember that our joy is accessible. We are like this far away from our joy every moment of the day.
And it's not limited. We
It's
only
not.
limit
Thank
ourselves.
you, boxcar racers. Thank you, MLR.
They are fun.
I'm sure they are. I mean, it's I like my safety and my comforts, and they look a little rickety for my
It's all good. Whatever floats your boat. Okay.
So, I mean, it's just not that hard. It's not that hard. And I guess I'm saying this because I just realized it. And I realized I spent like some 40 years of my life not returning to my joy. And for what? For what?
But
If
now
it's
you
not a
are.
hell
That's
yes, it's a hell no. It's
there it
really
is.
that simple. It's
Really,
really
keep
that
it
simple.
simple. We
It
used to have a
really is.
saying. We had a saying when I was a kid. Keep it simple, stupid. Kiss.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay.
That's a saying for writers too. If it's not a
Okay.
hell yes, it's a hell no. If some of your girlfriends ask you out and they're like, "Hey, let's hang out and let's go to this club," and you're like, "I don't want that club," then it's no, no. Maybe another time. It's not you, it's really me. It's not a hell
There it
yes.
is. And maybe never.
And it may
Okay.
be never, but it's definite. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And it's like things start to clarify when you understand that for yourself.
And
And
if they don't understand it, too bad. Bye.
bye
I
from the
made it
side.
this long. I made it this long. Okay. There it
And
is.
that goes back to like my Facebook problem. Like, why was I feeling bad for blocking people and, like unfriending people that like I, you know, deeply philosophically really didn't agree with? It's Facebook.
Set your set yourself free.
Yes. I mean, I wasn't even hurting that person probably didn't even notice. I was the one
Who
who was
gives a
carrying that
who
issue.
cares? Who
Exactly.
cares? Shit.
Exactly.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's about you. Okay? It's
Hmm.
about you.
MLR is just
Period.
putting all of these laughy emojis. We sound so stupid.
And I
Whining
feel
about our
and that's why
Facebook defriending ways.
that that's why we feel joy, and we're telling you how we feel this joy is because we took our power back and we live in life of peace and freedom. Okay?
Yeah.
Based on the
Yeah.
things that we want in our lives.
And I have to say, life starts I think it was maybe Einstein's attributed for saying this, but he says that like the oof, oh gosh, I'm gonna mess it up, so I'm not even gonna say it. But basically, what I wanted to say was life starts reflecting, or the universe starts reflecting what you're vibing. As if you make it a consistent discipline to return to joy, joy starts coming to you in spades.
Automatically.
It really does. Like all of us, like actually
The
last
laws of
November,
attraction. The laws
it
of attraction.
it really is. Last November, I was invited to a concert, a Jamiroquai concert by that friend I was telling you about from 30 years back. She and we went to a concert 30 years ago to his concert 30 years ago, and we used to love to listen to his music, and we would drive around in our friends' convertible cars or whatever, and listen to his music or whatever. And she saw this poster. She sent me the picture. It was a hell yes. It was a hell yes. There was no hesitation. She sent it. She was like, "What do you think?" I said, "Yes." I don't know what I'm doing on November 11th. I think it was November 11th, but yeah, it was such an easy. And you realize like the hell yeses become so obvious and frequent.
And that's where your joy resides. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for such a powerful conversation today. There's no
Thanks.
words to
I
describe.
want to thank
Okay.
you for a powerful conversation. This was so much fun.
Likewise. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And I
Thank you.
appreciate each and every one of you for staying and attending as well. Thank you so much for your support.
Yes, and
Okay.
Blues and Bob, I agree with you. If they don't like me, too bad, they're lost. Nope,
We
don't
love
do
you,
things
so
to
don't
impress
worry about
others.
it. Yeah, we love you, so don't worry about it. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, thank you so much, all. You have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your weekend, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye, CT.
Bye.